Alright, thank you very much for joining me again in this episode. Before I start anything, I just want us to remember that, or I just want us to notice that most of the time when we use most applications in general, we realize that we are basically performing four basic functions. It's either we are creating something, we are reading something, we are updating something, or we are deleting something in our applications, and that's what goes on in most applications that we use over the years. Okay, so basically in this section I am going to teach you how to do this, how to perform these functions, right? Create, read, update, and delete, and together we technically refer to them as the CRUD operations, right? So what we're going to do now is create one. So we're going to start creating a CRUD for our users. So I'm here in the user route, right? What is the first thing that we would want to do? I mean, since we've been able to create users, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we can update the values or some of the fields of these users, right? So what we are going to do right now is I am basically going to create a router dot put here. I'm going to create a router dot, so I'm going to say router dot put, and then I'm going to say that it should have a route of ID. I mean, since at the end of the day we are going to be updating a certain user with a certain ID, and then over here we could write our full async functions here. But I mean, since the last time we met, we talked about controllers and how to use them to make your code a whole lot more readable and scalable. So I'm going to go into controllers, and then I would create a new controller, say user, so I'll call it user.controller.js. Okay, now that we have the user.controller.js, our next move is I am basically going to create the update function, right? But before we create the update function, we need to remember something. At the end of the day, when we come here, we want to make sure that the user that is trying to update his or her value at the end of the day is logged in, right? We want to make sure that only logged in users can update their values, and we also want to make sure that it is one particular user. That, so if it is Kofi that is trying to update his value, we want to make sure that Kofi is updating his user credentials, right? And so that we can prevent Kofi from updating Ahmed's credentials. Okay, so basically, in order for us to be able to verify that a user is actually changing his or her credentials, we want to create a middleware called verify token. So we want to come into the server here, and then I would create a new folder called middleware, right? And I'll create a new folder called middleware, and then inside the middleware I'll create something called verify token. Some people like to call it as auth, but I would call mine verify token.js. And then inside my verify token, here's what I want to do. You see that when I go into Postman right now and I try to make a request, any kind of request, whether post, put, get, whatever it is, at the end of the day, I would want to check some things here. So as you can see, you can see auth from here. So I want to set this auth to the bearer token, and then inside this bearer token I can be able to pass in my token, right? Alright, I just cleaned it up just so that we get a better understanding of what I'm talking about. Alright, so inside this, going back to Postman, right? Inside this token, that is what we are going to compare, or we are going to verify with the user that is trying to perform the request. Then when we compare it, once the user is the same, once the user that is trying to make the request token is the same as the token that is being passed through this section, then it allows the request to go through. So how do we create this verify token? We are going to first of all import our JWT, and then we'd import JWT from require JWT. Okay, then require JWT. Okay, let's clear this and then put this here. Okay, now that we have JWT coming in, we want to create a function. We want to say verify token, we want to say verify token function is equal to a request response and next request response and next, and then an arrow function, and then we are going to say const auth header. So basically the section where we went to is what we refer to as the headers. So I'm going to say auth header is equal to the request.headers. So we are going to get the token, we are basically going to get the token from the request.headers, right? And then so this is the headers, and then inside the headers, where are we getting it from? We are getting it from authorization, right? So someone would want to come here and then put in the value. So someone might say token, someone might also say access token and all these things. But with our method that we are using here, we are going to use this authorization section. So over here we will say auth headers, and then we are going to put it inside these square brackets, and then we put in a string, and then we say authorization. And then this authorization is in this authorization we are going to create another variable, and then we are going to name that token. Okay, so once we create this variable naming a token, we are going to take this auth header, and we are going to say that we are going to take this auth header and also take the auth header, but the second value of it. So auth header dot split, and then we are going to just give it some space, and then we are just going to take the second value of it, because most of the time when you put in so if let's say you're using this section and then you put in authorization, right? You're using the section, you put in authorization, you're going to have to write bearer here. I'm going to have to write bearer here, and then you see that I'm giving space here. Then if I give the space, this token here, I'm going to have to pass this token or copy this token to paste here. Alright, so we are just saying that take this auth header and then give it some space and pick the second value here but we are not going to use this method, so I'll just close this. And we'll just use this. So you're going to take the bearer token. So as you can see, there's a bearer here, and then with the space we have token. So that's basically, this token is basically what we're going to pass in here. Okay, so we are going to take the first value of it, and then we are going to say that we are going to check, right? We are going to check for the token. So if we don't find any token, or if the token is false, if we don't find any token or the token is false, we want to return res.status. We want to return res.status 401. Obviously we want to return res.status 401, and we want to send access denied. That is because we do not have any authorized user logged in to perform that action or that request. Okay, now that we've been able to check for the token, we want to make a try. We want to make a try catch block, right? A try catch block to perform certain checks. So we want to log the error. First of all, we want to log the error in case there is any, and then we also want to send a response of the error as well. Okay, so we want to send a response saying response.status, then the status is going to be 400, and then we are going to say send. What are we sending? We are sending invalid token. Okay, so I'll explain that in a bit. So invalid token, right? So inside this try catch block, we are going to do some checks, right? So we are going to verify the token that, so in case there's a token being passed through, that is this section. In case there's a token being passed through, we want to verify if that token matches with the token that we put here. Okay, or if we want to verify if the token matches with the current user's token, right? So what we will do is we'll take const verified. Okay, const verified is equal to JWT dot verify JWT dot verify. Okay, no, it's okay. The reason why we are getting the error here is because I wrote JWT. I was supposed to write JSON web token. Yeah, I did that unconsciously. So as you can see, if I bring this dot, we should see the various methods. Okay, so verify, and then what are we verifying? We want to verify this token and compare it with what? So process. So we are verifying the token with which token? process.env dot jwt key. I want to confirm the name, so I'll go to my env file and I'll check. Okay, so yes, jwt key. And then now that we've been able to do a verification, in case it is successful, we want to pass in the payload to the user. We want to pass the payload to the user, so we can say verified. Okay, and then we would say, in case this is successful, move on to the next function inside the endpoints that we are using in our route. Okay, so now that we've been able to set this up, we can now go into our user route and then perform update functionality more safely and more easily. So we're going to say so after this we're going to say verify token. Okay, so we have to export this. So we'll come here and then say module dot exports should be equal to verify token. Module dot export should be equal to verify token, and then over here we can just call it, and then it should come. So now that it has come through, we can now pass in our next function. We would write the function in the controller, but first of all, let us just execute it here for the sake of beginners so that we all understand what we are doing. Alright, so this is obviously going to be an asynchronous function, which is request response, and then I'll create the function, the arrow function here. Now we want to be able to update the user details, or we want to be able to update the user details, right, of the current logged in user. Okay, so this is how we are going to do it. Alright, so this is how we're going to do that. Before we do anything, let's go back to our verify token. We made a mistake there. In here you can see request headers, and then this capital A, it's not supposed, it has to be a small a, because that will give us an error. Alright, now that we've been able to fix that, let's go back to our user routes.js. Now we could write the functions here and everything, but no, let's not do that. Let us follow our scalable method we learned from the last video. Then in doing that, we'll go to our user controller there, and then we would have to create the function, right? So we'll create a function called update user, and then inside our function we are going to have this we are going to have this async. We're going to have this async, then request or response, and then we have, so over here we, before we can do anything, we need to go for the user model. So we can just come here and then copy this path, and then we just import the user model. Okay, so over here, then we import the user model. Then let's make sure we are exporting. So we'll say module dot exports. Then we are exporting user update. Yeah, exporting update user. Okay, then inside the update user, we want to create a try catch block. Okay, try catch block. So we want to log the error. We want to log the error first of all, and then the next thing is we want to be able to identify the user that we want to update its value, right? So we're going to create a variable called updated user, and then inside the updated user, we're going to get this user model, and then we're going to pass in a find and update with but let's not forget that this is supposed to be an asynchronous function, so we should not forget await, or else we would get unnecessary errors. So we're going to say request dot params dot id, and then this id, we are getting it from the id here. Okay, so inside this user controller, so we are getting the request dot params dot id. So that's the user ID. We are finding the user by its user ID, and then we are updating it with what? So with the object notation that we are creating here, we would have to bring in our $, and then bring the set, and then with the set key, we are going to set it with the request.body. So the request.body is basically anything that the user passes through the request.body. That is the same property it is going to set, or is going to update. Now after we update, we want to make sure that we are getting the new results inside our response, right? So in order for us to get the new results, we want to say new is equal to true, or new key has the value of true. All right, so now that we have that working, we want to perform a check. So if we want to say that if there is no updated user, or if we try to find the user by its ID and we can't find the user, we want to return a function to let us know that. So we return rest.status foo4, and then JSON. We send out a JSON object saying the message should tell us that user not found. Okay, user not found. Now that we have performed this check, in case it is successful, we want to send out the response.status of 200.json, and then the JSON object is going to have a message that is saying that user has been updated successfully. Okay, now that we have this, then we want to go into the next section, or we want to say that we want to bring out this updated user. So we are sending this data object to the value of the updated user, so that we can get that updated user out. Okay, updated user. Okay, in case there's an error, we want to send a response of status. Send a response with the status code 500, saying in a JSON object, we want to say it is responding in a JSON object with a message of user update failed. and the next thing should be the error. It can console log, it can give us the error in addition. So okay, so yes, this is basically what we are going to get. Okay, so now that we know this and we've been able to export it, we are going to go into our user route and then we are going to import it. So we are going to say user update or update user. I think that was the name, update user. Then we just press enter and then it should be imported automatically. So I'm going to go into my Postman to test this out. So for us to be able to test it, we are going to have to create a new folder here, and then so a new folder, and then I'll name this folder, I'm going to name this folder user. Okay, then inside this folder we're going to create a new request, of which this request is going to be a put request because we are updating an already existing data in the database. So put request, and I'm saving, and then this put request I'm going to name it user update. Okay, alright, so user update. Then I can set the base URL. So for this we want to verify this. So in order for us to change this, let's verify. Let's go into our main routes file, and then we can see users. Okay, so the users is using each and every single endpoint inside the user route. Okay, so we just have to come here and then set this to users, and then over here we can just bring this update just so it makes sense even more, and then we come into Postman and set an update route here as well. Set an update route here as well, and then we can change this to the ID, because at the end of the day this is what is ending it. So this ID, so we're going to pass in the ID of the user we are looking for. So in order for us to be able to get the ID for the user we are looking for, let's go back to Postman and then go to login, and then we are going to log in again, afresh. Okay, now we have the ID. We are going to copy this ID real quick, and then I'll go back here, and then I'll just end it with the ID here. Alright, then over here in the login I'm going to copy. Okay, before we copy the token, I want us to run it and pretend as if we forgot to use the verified token. So we are not taking the verified token into consideration, we're just passing, or you're just making a request, right? You'd receive the error, right? And then you would understand how things work in general. So I'm just going to try to change the username of the user in the database. I'm going to change it from test to test updated without recognizing the verified token middleware. Alright, so I would send, and then we should get access denied, because at the end of the day that was what we set here. We said that if there's no token, give us access denied. Right, so we are going to go back here, and then we're going to go back here, and then what we are going to do right now is I want to go to auth. Okay, then I'll come here and I'll go to bearer token, and then I would replace this token with what is here. Okay, so we have this. I'm copying it one more time, Control C to copy, and then I'm coming here to change it. Okay, so we have this token now. I'm saving, and then let's go back to the body. As you can see, I'm changing the name. We should get the response here. So I make the request, and then now you can see that the username here is giving us test updated. Okay, so before the name was what? Before the name was just test. Now it's test updated. Let's log in again, and then you see the new results here. Okay, test updated is done. Alright, so basically this is one of the ways we perform updates in our MERN backend, right? So we are going to move on to the next thing, which is going to be deleting. So we want to be able to delete a user from the database. Now this is how you're going to do it. Alright, so this is how we are going to be handling the deletion of a user from the database. Now before we handle the deletion of a user, we want to make sure that the user that is deleting that particular user, first of all, matches with the same logged in user, and second of all, that particular logged in user should be an admin. But how do we check that? Let us go back into our verify token, and then we are going to create a new function. We are going to create a new function and name that verify. We're going to name that verify admin, right? And then inside the verify admin, you're going to take in 3 parameters: request, response, and next. Right, now that we have that, we're going to create our arrow function, and then inside we are going to call this verify token. Right, so inside the verify token, when we call this verify token, we are obviously going to pass inside our request, response, and next. So request, response, and next. And then after but instead of passing in the next, we are going to replace the next with a function rather. So we're going to say that hey, you take this function and do this for me. All right, now when they take this particular function, we want them to do some checks, right? So I want to say if the request dot user dot I'm going to say if the request dot user dot is admin is true, right? I could say if this is true here, but I mean it's not necessary because it's already set if I do it this way. So if it's true, I want to return, if it's true, I'd want to return a response. By say but what kind of response do I want to send? I want to say that it should just move on to the next function, right? So instead of returning something, I could do this. Okay, so I could just say next. But in case it doesn't work out that way, I could say else. If it doesn't work out that way, or if the user is not an admin, we can send out, so we can return we can return a response with the status 500, writing in we can just send it anyways. So we can just send and say that user is not an admin, and so India is not an admin, so user can't be deleted. Okay, so we have this working as we expect it to work. So what we are going to do now is I am basically going to go back to the user routes. Okay, then we now create the routes for it. So I'm going to say router.delete. I'm going to say that we are passing in the path delete, and then we are putting the ID params here, and then we are going to say verify. So we need to be able to export this, right? So instead of just doing this, we're going to export verify token one more time, and then verify admin. Okay, so over here we should be able to simply verify admin. Okay, so now both of them have been installed, both of them have been imported. Okay, the reason why it's behaving like that is because I need to make this an object and say verify admin. Okay, so now we have this part, and then we just have to pass in this function for this particular route. So what are we going to do now? We're going to go into user controller, and then we're going to create a new function called delete user. Alright, then this function is basically going to take in a request and a response, and then we are going to create our arrow function, then we have async. All right, so now that we have the async function here, what we are going to do is we're going to make our usual try catch blocks, and then let's log the error just in case we get any. Okay, just in case we get any error. Okay, so we are logging it out. Then what we are going to do is let's export this before we forget. Okay, so we're exporting it before we forget. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to try to find or we are going to try to delete the user anytime you run the delete endpoint, right? So we're just going to say await, right? You're just going to say await find, so await user dot find and delete, right? Find by ID and delete, and then we are going to pass in the request dot params dot ID, and then if it is successful, if this is successful, we want to send out a response dot status of 200, and then we would send out a JSON message or a JSON object with the message property having a value or saying that user has been deleted successfully. Okay, now that I think, is it one C or yeah, double C or yeah, so user has been deleted successfully. And then in case it doesn't work out, we want to just create a response here saying, so this response is going to be 500, saying user deletion failed. Okay, so now that we have this, I'm going to go back into our user route, and then I'm going to say delete user, import it from here, the controller, and then we save. So now we can go here, so let's go into our database for a second and see the users that are available. So I'm going to browse through the collections, and then okay, let's wait a bit. So I'm browsing through the collections so that we see the users that are available at the moment. So we have James, we have James boy girl we have test, and yes, so in my case I would want to delete test, but you know, we need to make sure that this person is an admin. Okay, so in order for us to make sure that this person is an admin, we need to edit this. We've not yet created the functionality to edit it from our Postman or from our backend, so we are going to have to edit it from here. So let's set this to true. Okay, so test is true. Okay, so now test is now an admin, and then I'm going to take test user ID here, and then I am going back into, let's open VS Code first and then go to Postman. So inside here I could create a new request and then say, and then I'm going to name the request delete user. All right, okay, so the request should be created. Okay, so I'm going to say delete user. So I'm saving that, and then I am turning this into delete. I'm saving that, and then I am bringing this. So we have users, we have delete, and then the user ID is what I'm going to replace here. Okay, now that we have this, we want to make sure that we are still passing in the auth here. We are still passing in the auth token, the bearer token here. But before we passing the auth, we need to be able to log in. Okay, so I forgot the login details for test. So let's use the one for the one. So let's delete just test updated. Okay, so let's take test updated. Let's take test updated ID, and then we would pass it in, we would pass it here. Okay, we would pass that here, and then inside the token for delete user, we are going to take it from here, copy. We're going to copy this, and then go back to delete user, and then we would replace this and then save. So now we can go back and then test. Okay, user is not an admin, so user can't be deleted. So what we need to do is we need to go back to Chrome, and then we need to look for test updated. Okay, and then change test updated's value to true. Okay, then we make the update. Okay, now that we've been able to make the update, when we go back to Postman and test, we should see user has been deleted. Okay, let us save. Let us go back to VS Code and save here too. Okay, let me make sure that it's the same user ID. So yeah, 404. Yeah, okay, then that's it. So I'm gonna go back to Postman. We have, let me change this login. I want to log in again with a different so I'm logging in. Okay, then I'm changing the token here, copy, paste. Okay, then we save. Okay, we save and we run. Okay, so user has been deleted successfully. Okay, so basically we want to the next endpoint that we want to be writing is to get just one user, right? One particular user. But in our case, the user that we'll be wanting to get in our front end would be the admin, right? Because at the end of the day, we would be having a dashboard where the admin will be able to perform certain actions to and from his store, his e-commerce store, right? So because of that, we want to create this new route here and say get. So we want to say router dot get here, and then we are going to pass in the route. So we're going to say something like get user. So get user is going to have this ID, right? So get user or get admin, yeah, get admin would be the best, having this ID. And then we're going to bring this comma, then we say verify admin again. I mean, since it has to be an admin that we are getting his or her details for, right? So basically we have get admin, and then we are going to have to replace this with the function that would create in our controller. So I'm going to go back to the user controller here, and then I'll create a const. I'll create a const here, and then inside the const here I would say get user. Sorry, I'll take get admin here. I'll take get admin. Then I'll say this is an asynchronous function that takes in the request response. And then I'm going to create my arrow function here. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to want to export this before I forget. I want to export this before I forget, right? So we're going to create our try catch block as usual. Then we log out the error that we are getting. Okay, we log out the error that we have here. And then what we are going to do right now is we are going to find the user, right, through the params. So we're going to create a constant and say, so we are going to say admin is equal to user model dot find by ID. Okay, find by ID, and we are getting it from the request dot params dot ID. Okay, now if we don't, let's perform a check here. right? Let's perform a check. So if we don't find the ID, or if the ID returns false, we want to send a response. So we'll return a response dot status that says 404, and then we are sending in a JSON object that has a message stating that admin can't be found, okay, or user can't be found, small general, user can't be found. And then, but if it's successful, we want to send back a response of status 200 and a JSON object which is going to have the message, not even a message, or let's just pass in a message for the sake of it. We might print out the message on the front end. So user has been found successfully. Then under we have data object, then we are passing the admin into the data object. Then over here we can just copy this, bring it here, and then we can change this to 500, and then we can say user query field. Then we can name this error, and then we pass in the error. Okay, so now that we have this, what we have to do is go into our user route, and then we can import it by saying get admin. Okay, now we have the get admin, so we can go into our Postman and test that. But before we test that, we need to make sure that the person is an admin. So let us go into our database and change some of the, so let's refresh. When we refresh, we wouldn't see test updated. The user with test updated, we wouldn't see that user anymore, so we'd have to use someone else. Okay, so let's call James, right? So let's change James's value from false to true, and then we're going to update it. Then we have to copy James's object ID, and then I'm going back to Postman, and then I'm going to add a request. I'm gonna add a request of so get admin. I'm gonna say get admin, and then over here let's change this to users, change this to get admin, and then we need to make sure that we are passing in this ID params, here. So I'll go back here, and then I'll set this to the user ID that we're able to get from the database, and then I would send, or I'll make a request. Okay, I'm getting access denied. Okay, I'm getting access denied because we are not logging in and passing this bearer token here. Okay, so what we'll do is over here we want to log in as James, right? We want to log in as James. So I'll come here, and then I'll log in as James, and then I'll log in as James here too. Okay, I think it should work. If that's the password, yeah, it's it's wrong. So I'll just let's recreate our user here. Let's recreate our user. So register, and then in the login we just log in one more time. Okay, then we pick our token. That we pick the token from here. Then we would change this, save, and then we go back here. We go back here to pick out the ID. Pick out the ID. Go to get admin. And change that really quick. We can even update from. Okay, we can't update here because we are not admin. So we have to go back to the database. Refresh. We need to refresh the database. Then we would go. So after refresh the database, we will go in for the test user here. We'll go in for the test user here, and then we'll set that to. I will set that test user to an admin, and then we'll update it. Once you're able to update that, we'll go back into Postman, and then we can now make a request. Let's save, then we make a request. Okay, user is not an admin, so user can't be deleted. No, we are not. Okay. Let me change this message. Let's go back here and change this message because it doesn't make sense. So you are not an admin. It's okay. You're not an admin. Okay, and then we can save. Go back to Postman and test. Let's log in one more time. Change the token. And save. Then we can now what is the error? Okay, yes, the error we are getting here is because we forgot to use await. So await, then we come back, and then we'll test one more time. So okay, so as you can see, the user has been found successfully, and then we can now see our user here. But as you can see, there's a password getting out. We don't want to receive the password in any way. So what we want to do here is we want to come under here, and then we'd say, so instead of printing out admin, we want to deconstruct admin. So deconstructing admin, we take out the password, and then info, and then we equate it to what? Admin. That's because you are deconstructing admin, and then we're just passing the info. So once we do that, we shouldn't receive password inside the new information that we are getting out of the database. So I'm going to launch it again, and then okay, so we are getting this. We just need to set it to doc. Okay, then run again. Okay, so the user has been found, and then the password wasn't included. Alright, so that's basically how we can get just one user, and in our case it's a little special because we are getting a user based on the fact that one of its properties, the admin field, is set to true. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to be able to get all users regardless of the type of people they are, right? So in our case, we don't really need to do much. We just take this get admin and we just duplicate it. Right now, what are we going to do here? We're just going to say get all users. Okay, we just changed the name. get all users is still an asynchronous function. We make this users instead of admin, and then here instead of us trying to get by ID or find by ID, we just find, and then we take this out. Alright, we take this out, so it just looks through the user collection and then pulls out everything that is in there. We don't need to make any checks over here, and obviously even if we want to take out the passwords out of each and every single user, we want to use this users rather instead of admin. We replace that with user, and then so we can say users have been found successfully, and then we're passing the info, and then yes, we just handle. So all we have to do here is export get all users, and then we'll go into our user route and then we would copy this, bring that out, and then we would leave this slash, and then we just verify token. We verify token, not admin. We verify token, and then we get all users. Okay, all right, so let's go here and test. So with the user folder here, we can add another request and then test that request. So we can say get all users, and then over here we can set that to the base URL here, and then we set that to users, and then yes, that is it. We don't need this one, so we don't need that because it's the slash here, and then I'm wondering why this it's not looking like it has been imported. It has to give a certain color. Okay, but once I'm able to enter, okay, it has been imported. All right, then that's good. Okay, so since this is just a slash, and then inside the routes here we have users, then that's it. All we need is for it to become a get method, and then we can just send the request, and then so access denied is telling us that we are not logged in, right? So what we'll do is we'll go here, and then we'll copy this and drop it in here. Okay, then we'd save. But there's a way that we could do it, and then we wouldn't have to keep pasting, and that way is to come to this folder, right? You click on the folder, you go to authorization, and then you click on bearer token, and then you just paste the token inside. So whenever you create a new so basically I'm going to do this like this. You see I have the token in there, and I'm making a request. I'm going to get all the users. Okay, I'm seeing query failed. Let's see what the error is. Cannot destructure password out of, it is undefined. Okay, so what we'll do is I'll take out the I'll take out this structure, this destruction that I did here. I'll take that out, and then I would make my request again, and then we should get all the users. Oh no, we wouldn't get anything because we are supposed to pass in users here. Okay, so let's do it again, and then we should do it again. We should get the users this time. I'm wondering what the error is. Okay, it's not an error. Okay, so as you can see, these are all the users that we have in a database right now, and I'm going to do inherit from auth parent. So it's going to take the bearer token from this folder. Alright, so I'm going to make the request again, and as you see, we still have these users. Alright, thank you very much for sticking with me to this part of the video. This is basically mastering CRUD operations with JWT part 1. Part 2 is coming out next. Alright, thank you very much. Hope to see you the next time we meet. Bye.